BYD. You know who they are.
Build your dreams. I should say build your dreams I'll do
A couple months ago, I did a video on them. It goes much deeper into their product lineup, so check that one out after watching this one. When it comes to electric vehicles, BYD is kind of Tesla's nemesis, and I want to talk about what they're up to in Mexico. Selling cars, yes, but also potentially positioning themselves to enter the US market with their electric vehicles. Let's talk about Mexico. About 1 million new vehicles are sold there each year. That's a little less than Canada, much less than the United States. Some electric vehicles are sold in Mexico, battery electric vehicles, and plug-in hybrids. But as you might expect, they are behind the US in terms of market share. A little more than 1% of new vehicles sold there are electric. Tesla sells cars there, they have supercharger locations, and they use the same NACS plug as the US and Canadian cars. Aside from being a market for new EV sales, Mexico has something else going for it. America. Their neighbor to the north and the inventor of Taco Bell.
You're welcome.
BYD would also love to sell EVs in the US, but it's not easy. The US tariff on Chinese-made cars was only 2.5%, but it was increased an additional 25% as part of the trade war under the Trump administration. There was a Phase 1 trade agreement in 2020, but it did not include tariffs on cars. Enter the Biden administration. Likes EVs, doesn't like China either. Tariffs are not negotiated away, and worse yet, generous subsidies are put in place to promote the manufacture of EVs, batteries, battery components, and the processing of materials in America, plus subsidies encouraging customers to buy EVs made in North America. You'll note I said North America. That's because we have the USMCA, and it allows vehicles made in Canada or Mexico to pass freely into the US without penalty. You know all this, and so does BYD. Several news outlets have reported that Chinese EV manufacturers are looking at Mexico as a way into the US market without having to pay that hefty tariff. BYD's global executive VP said they are studying the Mexico market. They will start by selling Chinese-made EVs in Mexico. If sales go well, they could consider building a plant in Mexico, which would then open the door to free trade into the US and Canadian markets. This frightens other manufacturers. They enjoy the flexibility of free trade from Mexico. Ford makes the Mach-E, GM makes the Blazer EV, and Ram will eventually make the ProMaster EV in Mexico too. But they don't want to see it used as a backdoor for Chinese manufacturers. Then things took another turn. In August 2023, Mexico temporarily raised import tariffs on a wide variety of goods coming from non-free trade agreement nations, like China. They are scheduled to last about 2 years, but who knows what will happen. The new rules are complex and en Espanol, but as I understand it, car parts, tires, and metals all get hit very hard. Fully assembled vehicles, I did not see called out in this new policy. With all this in mind, let's take a look at what BYD is selling in Mexico. Keep in mind that Mexico has a value-added tax, which gets added to the advertised price. And other market factors mean you cannot just convert from pesos to US dollars and expect that to be the price that it would be sold for in the US. BYD is currently selling the Dolphin, Seal, Han, Yuan Plus, and Tang. All are battery electric vehicles. But I want to first talk about the Song Plus DMI. DM stands for dual mode. This is a plug-in hybrid. In China, battery EVs and plug-in hybrids are all classified as new energy vehicles. In the US, they sometimes get lumped together in the same general category too of EVs. I prefer to talk about them separately because they're fundamentally different from a battery electric vehicle. Let's see how the Song Plus compares to the Kia Sorento. They are both mid-size crossovers, both available in Mexico, and they both start about the same price. However, the Song Plus is a plug-in hybrid, meaning you plug it in and you can drive a good distance without the gas engine firing up. The Kia Sorento in Mexico is only available as a gas engine, no plug-in option. In the US, you can get the plug-in for a hefty $17,000 more than that base engine. So essentially, BYD is offering a plug-in hybrid model for the same price as the Kia with the base powertrain, the non-plug-in hybrid version. Now let's look at the battery electric vehicles that they're selling in Mexico. BYD Dolphin. I apologize. I'm not going to go crazy with sound effects in this video. If you watch my earlier BYD video, the sound effects were kind of loud. Much of the BYD lineup was inspired by marine life. Thus, you have names like Seal and the Dolphin, which is roughly the same size as the Chevrolet Bolt EV and charges about as fast. The Dolphin offers a more powerful motor in China, but the Mexico version gets the base drive unit. It comes in 3 different color combinations. The gray is nice. This is cheese yellow exterior with a bobo brown interior. And if you've got the cojones, there is the afterglow pink exterior with angel pink inside. Battery size and range are a little less than the Bolt EV. BYD Dolphin uses lithium iron phosphate batteries, which are heavier but less expensive than the NMC battery chemistry used in the Bolt. I said earlier that we need to be careful about blindly converting car prices from one market into another currency. Case in point, the Dolphin in China is about half the price of the Dolphin in Mexico when you convert both of them to US dollars. Some of that is due to the logistics of shipping the vehicle overseas. Other goes into covering the costs of sales and general administration in that country, in Mexico. Much of that is due to the VAT and existing import duties on products coming from outside of Mexico. And some of that goes to add features necessary for that car to compete in the Mexico market. Or maybe it's more expensive because they feel like they can charge more. Bottom line, expressed in US dollars, the Dolphin is about $14,000 less than the Chevrolet Bolt EV sold in Mexico. That's an estimate because the Bolt EV is not currently sold new in Mexico, but the Bolt EUV is. So I made some assumptions coming up with that number. BYD also offers the Seal. Remind you of anything? Yep, Tesla Model 3. Both BYD and Tesla offer a single-motor rear-wheel drive base model. The BYD is considerably cheaper, but you do get more with the Tesla. More power, a little more range, and faster charging on Tesla's supercharger network in Mexico. Unlike the BYD Dolphin, color choices on the Seal are much safer, and the interior, I think, looks fantastic. By the way, BYD supports Apple CarPlay and Android Auto on its vehicles sold in Mexico. BYD Yuan Plus is another battery electric. In other markets, it's called the Atto 3. I'm going to compare it to the Tesla Model Y, but that vehicle is a little bit bigger. The Yuan Plus is closer in size to the Volvo XC40 Recharge. It's not a perfect comparison, but the Volvo is sold in Mexico. You'll notice a trend with this and the earlier BYD EVs. Not as powerful, not as much range, not as fast charging, but definitely cheaper than the competition. It doesn't look like a cheap vehicle, though. The exterior looks nice, and the interior looks good too. Although, maybe that marine-inspired styling doesn't float your boat. Share your comments below. What do you think of the interiors of the Yuan Plus, the Seal, and the Dolphin, those marine-inspired interiors? BYD Han is an executive sedan. Size-wise, it's larger and more premium than the Tesla Model 3, smaller than the Model S. Standard all-wheel drive, good price, but it gives up a little on some key specs. The interior is beautiful, not as marine-inspired as the other BYD vehicles. BYD Tang is a 3-row electric SUV, dual-motor, all-wheel drive, 7-passenger. It's a tad bit smaller than the Kia EV9. Now, Kia has not indicated that they will sell that SUV in Mexico, so I really don't have any price to compare it to. In Mexico, BYD has reached an agreement with 11 dealership groups, including one that offers a more upscale sales experience. They did not try to sell direct to consumer in Mexico. That would have required more investment into service centers and distribution. With these middlemen taking their share of the revenue, we do not know if BYD is making any money on these EVs. BYD said they hope to sell 5,000 vehicles in Mexico by the end of 2023, and it looks like actual sales will be about half of that number. So, what happens next? Let's explore the possibilities. Could Mexico become a hot market for EVs? No, Mexico's not the new Norway. It's not affluent enough. The government has no real incentives in place to buy an EV. Infrastructure outside of the Tesla superchargers are limited. Climate change is not yet top of their minds, and gasoline is very affordable in Mexico. The plug-in hybrid BYD Song Plus will probably be their best seller for quite some time. How does BYD deal with Mexico's import tariffs? China and Mexico could negotiate a free trade agreement, but the US would be pissed. And Mexico has benefited from the onshoring trend, where companies who don't want to rely on long supply chains coming from China, they're starting to build more in Mexico instead. A more likely scenario is that BYD and other Chinese manufacturers negotiate with the Mexican government. The new tariffs that were signed into law are set to expire in 2 years. If Chinese manufacturers are given some assurance that they will expire in 2 years, they would be more willing to invest in Mexico manufacturing and assembly of automobiles, with some car parts coming from China. There are content requirements for these vehicles in order to qualify, but with some creative sourcing and accounting, they could make it work. The BYD Yuan Plus, Seal, and Dolphin are all built on their E-Platform 3.0 set of components. If available today, they would face very little competition in the US at the affordable end of the EV market. Unless BYD quickly spins up a battery plant in North America, they would not qualify for the US consumer incentives on EVs up to $7,500 off of a purchase. But currently, the interpretation of that rule allows for leased EVs to benefit from that program without restrictions of country of origin. But that interpretation could change in the future. In summary of BYD, they're selling EVs in Mexico that are very price competitive, but they don't look cheap. In the US, consumers are being told that electric vehicle range is the most important attribute. In my opinion, I think electric vehicle charging speed gets overlooked too much. BYD vehicles could use some better numbers in both metrics. It seems likely that BYD or another Chinese manufacturer will soon announce a major investment into manufacturing in Mexico, so keep an eye out for that. But you know what's not a major investment? Hitting that like and subscribe button. It's basically free. Share your comments below, and thanks for watching.